All right, guys, we'll get started here today. We're going to talk about comms for EP. Mostly what this is going to be is about radios. So comms for EP is very heavily resultant in leaning onto apps like WhatsApp and Signal and other things. So that's a huge part of comms for EP. But specifically, this webinar is going to focus more on radios, since we've been using a new resource for radios here recently with pretty good success, and it's been pretty awesome the way these function. So I want to share that with you, and we'll get right into a slideshow presentation on push-to-talk radios and the new POC / push-to-talk radios that we've been using. So if you guys have questions, you can unmute yourselves and ask. If you guys want to throw them in the chat, that's fine too. But hopefully this shares a good resource with you guys. And any questions you have about it, please let me know. So we're going to get right into it. We have the first thing we're going to talk about here is benefits of push-to-talk radios. And when we say push-to-talk radios, we're talking about walkie-talkies. So, line of sight radios, they need a repeater to, go a longer distance. So most of us don't use that. Yeah, there are mobile repeater systems, but they can be complicated, and most of us aren't into it that much to do that. So the benefits, main benefits, I should say, of push-to-talk radios, they're relatively inexpensive because you purchase them and you can use them for the life of that radio. They have instant comm. So when you press the push-to-talk button, there's a negligible delay in startup. I mean, usually it's a tenth of a second, quarter of a second at most of, just to press the push to talk to activate it. And you have to wait that's, just fraction of a second. So it's pretty instant, and everybody hears it right away. That's another thing is when you start talking, everybody hears it right away. The next thing is pretty intuitive, easy to use. Usually they're pretty slick with, almost no buttons on them, a power knob and a channel knob. And as long as you understand the power knob is usually the volume knob as well, you put it to the right channel and you're good to go. So they're mostly very easy to use and intuitive, pretty much all aware of how they work. Push the button, talk, and everyone hears you. So, I mean, pretty simple, guys. But what we have are some issues with that. So there are some issues with push-to-talk walkie-talkies, which mostly come in the fact that they are limited by clarity and distance, because as that signal goes out, it gets chopped up through buildings and elevators and metal and everything else. So distance is an issue, clarity is an issue at distance, and then security and privacy. Most analog radios, all you can do is put on a CTCSS code, which keeps people from talking on your channel, but they can still listen. And then if you do a DMR and then go encrypted, that comes with its own issues for scalability and programming. So, there's a pro con to everything, but the more secure we make them, the less convenient they are. So security and privacy are a pretty consistent issue with these radios. Headsets are usually pretty cheap, and we have to spend the money to get the good ones. And then charging blocks, that's a huge thing. When I look at radios, because I travel a lot, I don't want to have to carry around a huge charging block per radio, or like a big block where all the radios go into, because then that just doesn't work with everybody in their own hotel rooms and stuff. So the charging solutions are pretty poor, considering that, that we're not checking a radio in and out of a G-SOC every day when we're doing mostly EP work. If that's for a RST or a corporate environment, that's great. Doesn't bother anybody. You don't lose the little charging cable. But for travel, I would like a better charging solution. And then scalability and programming. So if you've ever spent the money on good push-to-talk radios, you probably had to get them programmed. So now if you just want to add a radio or 2 or 10, you have to get those programmed the same way. So hopefully you either saved that programming data, or whoever did it for you the first time can program those radios too. So scalability and programming, it really goes hand in hand with the security and privacy. If they're not private, we can usually just program them with the basic frequencies and we're good to go. But if they are private, it's difficult, especially if you're using a proprietary software like Moto Turbo from Motorola. or something else, you can't self-program those. You have to mail them somewhere, or if you're lucky enough to just drive them somewhere to get programmed. So again, pro con with everything. Now there's a type of radio that you might be aware of. It's called POC, which is push to talk over cellular. If you remember Nextel, that's basically what it is. So it's utilizing the cellular network of towers and information and data, but it goes via a walkie-talkie looking radio. So this solves some of those problems. They're very clear. They are unlimited by distance. So as long as anywhere in the country, and if you have a global SIM, it actually works in other countries as well. And then they're secure and private because it goes over the cellular network. So it's just as private as your phone is, in terms of making a phone call, anybody listening to you. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. So that solves a lot of the problems for us, versus, normal push to talk radios. POC solves a lot of those problems, but everything's got a trade-off, and it comes with its own. So some of the things that we have to worry about with push to talk over cellular radios, they're typically very expensive. They can be anywhere from $300 to $500 per radio. And that in of itself isn't that far off of a good walkie-talkie. But you're then looking at, in most platforms, the Motorola, Peak, a bunch of the other common platforms that are out there, it's $25 per month per radio to operate that. And then there's also a management platform fee. So if you want a dashboard to be able to connect your radios into talk groups, you got to pay $10 a month for that as well. So this can really add up very quickly, and it keeps POC radios from being, functional to a lot of teams simply because of the expense. They're very expensive, especially over time. There's also a push to talk delay. So it's about 1 second, a full second, because you have to press the button, start up the radio. That takes, about a quarter of a second. And then it takes another quarter of a second to beep for you to actually start talking into it. And then that has to go over cell towers and back to the other radios, which takes about a quarter second, half second. So best case, it can be about a half a second, but it usually is closer to a full second before the other radios start hearing you. And that's why I say it's a full second, is you can start talking faster than that, but it takes about a full second before the other radios start hearing you. So not a problem in most contexts, but there is something to be said about pushing a button and people hear you right away. So especially if you're close by and you're working a stage or something like that, you might want that instant comm. And then because the radios are fairly new and limited, they're very proprietary with their headsets. So the radios that I've experienced with, pretty limited in the headset selection. Okay? And the scalability is limited simply because you have to buy a new radio from that manufacturer, put it on your system, got to pay $25 a month for it. And so that makes it pretty hard to just, add radios. So overall, POC solves a lot of problems, and it's a great thing, but very expensive, and especially over time, very expensive. And it doesn't, it has its own issues. It is also reliant on cell service, meaning it has to see a cell tower. So if you're out in the middle of nowhere in a, field in Wyoming or underneath a stadium or something like that, they're not going to work. So they do have their own limitations as far as service and serviceability rather, but much, much better, in my opinion, than regular push to talk radios. So now that we have problems with push to talk, and we have some problems with POC, what can we do about that, and what solutions are out there? Well, I'll tell you, I found this. I went through a lot of manufacturers, buying their radios. I spent a lot of money buying different radios, trying to figure out which one actually works and what's feasible. And I recently came across this service. This is called Global Push to Talk, Global PTT. And Global PTT offers, it says walkie-talkies there. That's an error. So it offers walkie-talkies. It offers push-to-talk radios. But that one on the left that you're looking at in the picture, right there, sorry, right here, that one's actually dual mode. So this radio here is actually dual mode. So it has several push-to-talk buttons. One of them is POC and one of them is UHF, which is it does both at the same time. So you don't have to switch back and forth. You can shut off one and only use POC. You can only use UHF. But the way that I've been using them is they're set up to where the main push to talk button is POC and then the sub PTT button is UHF. So that's pretty awesome because if anybody's talking on either one, you can hear them. The only downside is you actually don't know which one. You can usually tell because the POC is a lot clearer. However, you can't tell. So, if you are switching modes, you might want to let everybody know what you're using so that way they know how to contact you back. But I haven't really run into that as an issue just yet. They're relatively inexpensive radios. They're just over $100 each. The one on the left here, this one is actually $40 each. This one is just over $100 each. Okay, so relatively inexpensive for what they are. Both of these radios actually utilize USB-C charging cables, which is, for me, ideal because I can have a bunch of cables and charge up a bunch of radios. Or if I'm just traveling with my one, easy day, I already have that. I already have a USB charging solution, so I can just plug that in. So you don't have to have an extra charging block to bring with you. And as good as all that sounds, the best thing about these radios is it is $35 to $45 per year per radio. So if you do the math on that, it's $35 a year for the 72 country SIM card. So it's globally capable in 72 countries. And it's $35 a year. For the one that covers pretty much everywhere around the world, it's $45. I have the one that's $35 in my radios. And again, it covers 72 countries, which is most major countries around the world. That's $35 a year versus the competitor's $25 per month, right? Or roughly, $300 per year. So it is 1/10 of the cost annually to operate these radios. And per the radios that I had, they were 25% the cost of the other radios that I purchased. So a quarter of the cost to purchase them and 1/10 of a cost to operate them. Not only that, but the management platform is free. So that's another $10 a month or $120 a year to manage these radios. So this is something where, we're really happy to find this solution because it does this one over here, at least does POC and push to talk. This one is just push to talk over cellular POC, which is fine if that's what you're looking for. It's a small radio, fits in the palm of your hand. And these radios being inexpensive to purchase and very inexpensive to run, it's fantastic. I'll also say that these radios have the Kenwood K 2-pin connector. So that also makes it very easy to find headsets for them because that is the most ubiquitous connection in the world. So the Kenwood K 2-pin connector, you'll have no problem finding a good headset. I use a 2-wire push-to-talk connected to an in-ear headset. So that's my ideal way to do it. I've got a dozen of those on order from an ear to add them and spread them out through our teams. So somebody mentioned an ambient noise is the problem. No, that's a headset problem, not a radio problem. So if you have an ambient noise problem, you need to look at your headsets and get something that blocks your ear with an earplug, such as plugging into a Surefire, earplug with your headset acoustic. So it's common problem with any noisy environment. It's the earpiece that the radio is not going to change anything. So most of the time that we operate, we are pretty close to each other. So if we want to, we can just use the push to talk feature. But if we're ever separated, we can switch to the POC feature if we wanted to, or vice versa. You can just keep using POC as much as you want. And then if you really need that instant comm, if you're co-located, you can switch to UHF. That's again with this radio here. All right. The one over here, just push to talk over cellular, which is fine. It's a great resource, great radio for $40 to purchase, $35 per year to operate that radio over POC. There's a lot of options for radios from this manufacturer. So this is the global push to talk website. It's txq-radio.com. They have a US-based Amazon storefront where you can find some of the radios, and they have an AliExpress for additional models. There's a free account setup. So when you buy them, you get instructions on setting up your account and linking up all your radios. And it's very easy to figure out how to put them on the same talk group. So with any radio like this, it's called a talk group. So you create a talk group and you title it, and then you add radios to it. They can be on several talk groups, and you can switch those talk groups on the face of the radio. So, you know, if you need to talk to multiple groups, that's fine. Not at the same time, but if you need to be on multiple talk groups, you can switch between them. And that account is free. So there's a WhatsApp chat that you can even, you know, if you have any issues, you can contact customer service on the WhatsApp chat and get them fixed. What's another great thing about these is the service from this particular resource. When you purchase the radios, if you purchase the SIM cards with them, they come ready to go, hooked up to your account. So as I've added radios to my account, they come out of the box with the SIM cards installed. All you have to do is turn the power knob and they work. Rather, I missed a step. All you have to do is go online to your dashboard, add them to the correct talk group that you want them to be in, and turn the power knob, turn them on, and they'll work. So it's that easy. So I mean, honestly, if you're not very much into radios, it's only too easy to get these things to work for you because they're preset. So check it out, guys. Global-PTT, Global Push to Talk, txq-radio.com. I highly recommend. These are the two models that I have that I can speak to. Again, it's the one with the POC and push to talk, and then as you're looking at it, the smaller one is just push to talk over cellular. Good question was, is the RF side GMRS? So this radio, a lot of the radios that you purchase, they do require FCC licensing, which that radio does, since it operates over a span of UHF and it has the power that makes it require a license, and the antenna is removable. All of those things mean that it requires a FCC license to operate, to answer your question a little bit, Keith. But to answer your question a little bit further, it is not required to purchase. So read into that as you will. So you do not have to have the FCC license to purchase the radios. The global PTT is essentially encrypted, Tanner. So when you're operating over POC, PTT over cellular, it is the same as your cell phone. So it offers the same level of encryption as your cell phone does when you make a cell phone call. Okay. So in my opinion, it's, you know, very, 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 very few of us actually need to worry about more than that. Okay. Very, very secure relatively. Okay. So I don't think that you need to worry about it past that unless you're, you know, in the Secret Service pretty much. Okay. Well, guys, if you have any questions, post them up. I'll talk about our experience with them. Go ahead and scan for the website, scroll to the bottom, and register for our newsletter if you haven't. We got a lot of good stuff coming out. We got a couple of new ebooks coming out on KPIs, on how to design and build a corporate EP program, on family office protection. So we've got a lot of great ebooks coming out, a lot of great other content, blogs, and other things. So make sure you guys sign up for the newsletter. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you learned something. Check out this resource and stay safe. Take it easy, guys.